Welcome to the On the Spot podcast, where we talk to people from all walks of life and recovery, brought to you by your favorite sober lounge. Probably the only sober lounge, I think. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really do the research, but it's called The Spot on 43rd and Northern in Phoenix, where they host several meetings every day, cultivate a positive environment of fellowship and recovery. And it supports sponsorship, the 12 steps. It's also a nonprofit that does a lot of good for a lot of people inside and outside of the rooms. Today, we get to talk to a woman who truly embodies the spirit of what is possible in this program through change. She is heavily involved in various women's groups, fellowships, sponsors quite a few women, and is also one of the best bosses pretty much ever. This is the amazing Irene. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. I know you're super busy, and how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. A little nervous, but I'll get over it.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I get nervous still, so it's no big deal. Trust me. You'll forget that we're even doing it within like 5 minutes. So, all right, I know you're involved in a lot of things, and so is your husband. Which, by the way, it's really weird. Your husband is so quiet. Like I never pictured you guys being together because he's just so quiet, and you're known to be a talker. No, I'm just kidding. It's the exact opposite.
That's it.
But I know you guys are involved in a lot of things. Like, how do you effectively find the time for everything that you guys are involved in with both of your separate careers, service work, sponsorship, family stuff, and like running a business? What does that look like?
On a day-to-day basis, really what it looks like is we keep a good calendar. We share our calendar. We communicate. We let each other know. Our favorite thing is put it on the calendar. Put it on the calendar. And that's how we really can manage our recovery, a business, our home life. We have two dogs that need attention. Like, yeah, it's it's a lot, but it really does take communication. Yeah.
Yeah, your dog has heard a lot of fifth steps. I'm pretty sure.
Devin has.
Yeah, he probably knows more about me than most people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
He's a
the
very
messy thing
comforting
is, I
dog.
think that he could probably be bribed to tell people with food. Like, I think if somebody offered him the right amount of food, he would just spill everything about me, all the stuff.
That's funny.
Weird shit. But so yeah, I know that and this is a question I ask everybody that's been incarcerated. I have too, and from like my personal experience, it's hard to go from an environment where, you know, you don't trust anybody, right, around you to go into this program where you have to trust somebody completely in order to like take you through the steps. What did that process look like for you, and was it a hard transition?
I mean, it was. I mean, I was homeless for 4 years,
Yeah,
living in Sunny Slope. And then I went to prison for 5 years and then living with a bunch of women for 5 years, and then getting out and then going into the program and being like, oh, you got to trust women. It's like, no, I can't. I won't. And I didn't for a long time. And hence why it took me so long to finally get and stay sober, is I could not. I tried. I went to the New Solutions, and I that was my first experience of cultivating relationships with women. Just brief, because I was only there for about 3 months or so. But I remember going back there multiple times, even after I was a client. And the relationships with the women was something I really, really had to work on. Now, 6 years sober, it's what I do. It's second nature. Really try to only go to women's meetings. I obviously only sponsor women, and I encourage my sponsees to start building those relationships with women, because that's who's really going to save us.
And it's crazy because you get to see both sides of the spectrum as far as like the men and women go in recovery. Do you feel it's harder for women initially to form those relationships with other women, or do you feel it's more difficult for guys to start trusting other guys and form those relationships?
My experience shows me that some women are just, a lot of us that come out of, really, is prison has affected us a lot in that way. It's like we've lived with these women for so long, for years and years and years, and it's always been a constant battle, and then you come out, and the first thing we say is you got to trust women. And I'm sure that's the same thing for men. You're in prison and you have this mentality of you got to, don't trust anyone, and now you get out in recovery, and we're, one of the things, the first things we tell them is you got to trust the men, you got to trust the women, and it's really, really hard. It's weird. It's like walking into Walmart and you get this culture shock when you get out of prison. You walk into Walmart and you get this shock of like all these lights and stuff. And it's almost like the same thing. You go into a women's meeting, they're like, oh, trust all these women. You're just like in this shock. You're just like, I don't know if I could do this, but it just takes practice. We just have to keep trying it.
Yeah, and I mean, and I've noticed too, the more that I go to men's meetings and I cultivate these meaningful relationships with people, it becomes easier and easier to trust. And I think a lot of it has to do, and like I can directly relate the relationship I have with people to the relationship I have with my higher power too. Like the more I can trust God, the more I can trust other people, if that makes sense,
Oh
and
yeah,
vice
it's
versa.
absolutely, yeah. That's what I try to hit home in in the very beginning when I sponsor a girl is, you haven't had this relationship with a higher power with nothing. You've just been relying on yourself, and you can't expect it to just be this wonderful, great thing. You gotta put some work in it. It's just like a plant. You gotta water it, you gotta trim it, you gotta give it some nutrients. And that's the same really thing with the relationship with a higher power. Maybe in the beginning you just are like, thanks, keep me sober, thank you at night, or whatever. And it's just little short things, but eventually you keep doing it, and then it becomes this, like, you've established this relationship and it becomes easier. And it's the same thing with sponsorship. I get sponsees and they call me, I tell them to call me every day, and they're just like, what am I supposed to say? I'm like, whatever, you don't have to say anything. But the reason why I want them to call me every day is because I want them to get into a habit and then building this relationship, not just on their side but on my side. I got to answer the phone. They're going to trust me that I'm going to answer the phone. And so we start building this relationship. They call me, next thing you know, they're like 20-minute conversations, when the beginning it was two. And so we just start this relationship, and then they start trusting me. And so when I start asking them to do some hard things, like, I don't know, a 4 step, maybe start getting honest about the sexual inventory and some of the things that they've done in the past. And then we talk about it in their 5th step. And if we didn't do that in the beginning work of the trust and building that relationship, they're never going to, they're not going to trust me in the 4 and 5. And that's my part as being a sponsor, is I got to encourage them. And that's really what I do. Yeah.
And no, and you're absolutely right, especially when it comes to the sexual inventory stuff, because I feel that there's a lot of guys out there that have experienced it's it's almost, I wouldn't say as common as it is in women for guys to have experienced that trauma, but it's very common. But it's just not talked about as easily because guys aren't as comfortable to talk about that. I think that you know, especially guys that have been in prison and guys that have been homeless, they've experienced that sexual trauma as well. A lot of us have, and it's not as easy to talk about as for guys as it is for women, I think. And I mean, it's not really easy for anyone to talk about, but once you get over that fear and you start trusting somebody and you kind of get it out, I think that's like a huge step in the right direction to forming a good relationship. You have to trust the person you're with, just like you have to trust your higher power, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like sitting across from somebody, and listening to them, and then you say, me too. Or you say, I get it. I understand. And here's my experience. And that you just watch their face and their body expression, and just everything, that it's like almost that comforting of just the words of like, I get it, me too. Let me tell you what happened to me, or whatever. That's the beauty of this program, is like, if I don't have experience in something, I'm gonna say, I don't have any experience in that, but let me find some people. But if I can relate to something, and I mean, I've been to prison and I've been homeless and I'm a drug addict for over 20 years. This is how I did it and this is what I went through and here's where I'm at today. I can get the attention of somebody when nobody else can. I can sit in front of a woman and say, you know what? I understand what you're going through, and you can trust me, and let me show you what I did. That's the best part about it.
Oh, 100%. And it's that feeling of like when somebody says me too, here's my experience, it's like, oh, I'm not alone anymore, and I finally
Mhm.
start to feel
Mhm.
comfortable because that's like truly the opposite of addiction, in my opinion, is connection. Because when we're addicted, we feel isolated, like we're the only one in the world that's going through this. Like we don't want to have healthy communication with anybody because we're scared to.
Yeah.
And when we get into recovery, we kind of have to realize that we're really not alone in this and we can't do it alone.
Yeah, and we got to give ourselves a chance. I remember so many times getting out of jail, and them putting me in, like, I don't know, sober living, early release to sober living. And I wouldn't even give myself a chance to try this recovery thing. They would tell me go find a job, and I would go get high. They'd tell me make my bed, and I would leave, and I wouldn't even make my bed, and I'd never come back. Over and over and over again.
Yep.
That was my experience, and until I actually gave myself a chance to do this recovery thing. It was a long, hard road, man. That's for sure.
No, and I completely understand that. There's been so many times where I've gotten out of detox and then like went to a sober living and they're like, all right, well, here's a bus pass. We need you to find a job, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, okay. And I would just go in the room, drop off whatever I didn't want to carry around with me anymore and just leave. Like, just
Yeah.
leave my stuff, leave everything I owned and just go, like, just go back out to the streets.
I got out of jail one time. Was doing like this was back when the tents was a thing, and I was out there. Probably did like 8 or 9 months, and I got out. And this guy, this boyfriend I had, he picked me up in a stolen car, and I made it to 19th Avenue and Cactus, and then we got surrounded by the cops. Going back to jail because I was high as by then, I was all get out from Estrella jail to 19th and Cactus. That was a wrap. Headed back to jail in the same clothes I just got out in. Like, that is complete insanity, like, absolutely insane for that to happen. But that was my life, you know? That's
That's almost worse than getting page 2'd, I think. Like, I think that's almost you know what I'm saying? Like, at least when you get page 2'd, you haven't hit the street yet, but, like, you hit the
right.
street and you're like, "I'm out. Yes." And then you
Yes.
just turn
Yes.
around and come right fucking back. That's probably the
That's
same people who are
insanity.
still on shift. Like, they were like, "Weren't you
Mhm.
just here?" Literally.
Yeah. Yep. It's crazy. Some of the things I did back then, I think about now, and I'm just like, I can't even imagine. I can't even believe that I thought that those things were good ideas. It's just crazy. I mean, I used to live at Fifth Avenue in Hatcher behind that little Carnesia. That was my place, for years and years and years. Oh, and I drive by there now, and it just like gives me chills.
Yeah, and, like, that's the messed up thing about it is, when you're homeless, everybody thinks it's like a how can you not realize your life is go it's a gradual process, and it's like an
Mm.
acceptance thing, like, it's one thing happens and you accept it because you're getting high, then another thing happens, and then, you lose your apartment. Okay, well, I have to spend a night outside because, like, I can't find a place to go, but that's fine, I'll be high, and then, like, you can't find a place to go for a few nights, and you try to stay up and not sleep outside, but then you just wind up falling asleep somewhere, and then it's just like, "Well, I guess this is my life now." 'Cause it doesn't happen all at once, being homeless kinda happened gradually, and it makes it easier to accept because, A, you're getting loaded and, you know for me, I even had opportunities to stay places, and all I had to do was not get loaded, but I couldn't do that. I would rather be outside getting high than inside somewhere safe and sober, you know?
I absolutely can relate to that. I don't know how many times people try to help me and just stay with me tonight or stay with me for 3 days and then you could get back into solutions or do this for a few days and just all you got to do is not get loaded and we can get you there, or whatever the situation was. And I just could not even put one day together. And what's crazy is I just had this experience with one of my girls where it's like, man, I took her to a place she couldn't get in. I'm like, okay, stay here for 3 days. Stay here for 3 days and we'll get you in there. And she couldn't stay sober. And it's like I can understand that. I could absolutely relate to that. How many people tried so many times to help me, and my best idea was like, I'm just going to go and do my thing. And my thing always looked like sleeping on the bus, sleeping at behind the carnicia, sleeping, in abandoned houses or whatever. That was my best idea. You know, I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't stay sober. And now I think about it, I was like, all you need to do is stay sober for one day. Well, if I could stay sober for one day, I probably wouldn't need, the
Yeah.
program. But
Yeah, and I mean, that's the worst feeling in the world is when someone's trying to help you and you really wanna take their help, but, like, you just can't stop getting loaded, and, like, it's almost like a reflex, like a knee-jerk reaction. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's incredible, like, the cunning, baffling, powerfulness of this shit. Like, it's just when somebody's trying to help you and they're like, "All you have to do is not get loaded," and you really wanna do it, and you just physically can't, like, there's just something pulling you, I mean, it's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and it's the situations and the circumstances that I would put myself in. It wasn't like that was everybody I was surrounded with. Like these were all the people that I was getting loaded with. But the difference between me and them is I was usually on probation. I was usually on the run. I was usually, needing, had somebody over me and everybody else didn't, so they could keep doing it. My consequences were much greater when I got caught than when they got caught, and it was just like, but that still wasn't enough. still wasn't enough knowing that every single time I got loaded, I was going to end up in jail. And I've been to jail so many times, I can't even count. I'd like to find out one day, like go and do the footwork and find out how many times did I actually go to jail in Maricopa County. I would say at least 50, probably. It's
So
easy.
I always thought it would be a really good idea for the show in the background to download everybody's like mugshots and just have those in as like the backdrop of the
That's crazy. I have this one, I gotta find it. I was 90 pounds and Skeletor, like my bones, my cheekbones were like sunken in. It was terrible, terrible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, mine are not I mean, they're not flattering.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I look at him today and I'm like, "Oh my god, like that's not even me," you know? Like and it's terrible. I can look at my mugshots and I can remember exactly what I was going through, exactly what I was feeling, and it's not good. And the insanity is when you're homeless, chances are you're not calling your probation officer, you're not showing up to court dates, you're getting warrants. I mean, that's how it happened for me. Like, I got arrested, they gave me a court date, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure thing, I'll be there." And like, I'm not fucking going, you know?
Remember in the beginning when you would get like OR'd and you were like, they would let you go and you're just like, okay. And then after a while, they're like, yeah, no, nope, you're gonna have to put a
No,
bond and nobody's paying my bond.
no.
Nope, I'm in, you know.
Yeah, no.
But in the beginning, it was the OR thing. You're like, this is cool. Okay, I'm out. Yeah. Yeah. After a while, they're like, yeah, no more. You're not coming to court. You're
Yeah,
not going to
no, they
show
know.
up.
Of course, then they just start keeping you there to their first court date, and then you're in there for a
Hmm.
couple months. I mean, the last time I was in there, it was, like, from, like, July to, like, December of, like, 2022, and, I mean, I honestly did not expect to go to jail that day, but we never do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you're homeless and you're out there, you're like, "I'm gonna go to jail one day, but not today." Like, that's what's always
Yeah.
my and then when that other shoe dropped, you were like, "Son of a bitch." Like, you know? Like, it
Yeah.
always caught me by surprise for some reason. But, but yeah, I just remember going in there and, like, the cop putting me in the car and being like, "You might not know this, but this is probably saving your life." And I'm like, "What do you know? Fuck you." Like, but he was 100% right?
The last time I went to jail was December 30th of 2011. I remember thinking, man, I'm doing this again, doing this again. And it's one of those feelings that never leaves you. You always remember. I remember sitting in the back of that police car. Here we go again, going back down to the county jail, and it's just such a defeating, but you're just like, it's almost like you take this deep breath. You're just almost like, at least I know now I'm going to stop. You know?
I was gonna say that too. Like, it's insane because you don't wanna go to jail and you're not looking forward to detoxing in there, but there's almost this wave of release that comes over you when that cop door shuts and you're in handcuffs and you're just like, "Alright, it's fucking over for a little while,"
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And,
Yep. God's going to sit me down for a minute. Yep.
yeah, exactly, and it's a messed up feeling to, like, not wanna be somewhere, but know you need it, and I don't know, it's messed up. So, alright, yeah, let's get into your story a little. So after you went to jail the last time, when you got out, did you stay sober and go into a program, or, like, did it take a little while? Because for me, it took a little while, it wasn't immediate.
Well, mind you, I've been trying to get sober since 2000. I got out of prison in 2008. So 2010, 11, 12, like I had been in and out of the program. And then when I had got out of prison and stayed sober for a couple years, and then I got loaded, went back to jail, went back to prison, and I got out in 2011, and I stayed sober for a couple years. Um, but then, I got a job working in recovery, and I started making that job my recovery, and I got loaded, after 2.5 years. And so I, go at it again. That's when I went to New Solutions, and then I had got out, or no, I had went to New Solutions, and then I went back to prison. But this last time I got sober, I had 5.5 years, and I don't know, man. I guess I'm a chronic relapser, whatever they want to call it. But I just, whenever I lose my connection with God, and I think that I'm doing freaking great and wonderful, look at me, look at me, I usually fall flat on my face. Always, not usually, always. And that's what happened. At 5.5 years sober, I decided it was a good idea that one night I was gonna just smoke some meth, and I did,
I mean,
and it was
just
miserable.
a little meth.
And, here's the thing, I did it for one night. Why one night? I have no freaking clue. No freaking clue why, but I did, and I remember praying to God that night. Actually, it was the next day. The sun was coming up, and I had that disgusting feeling in my chest, in my stomach, and my gut of, man, I just stayed up all night, just knowing what's ahead of me, just knowing like this. And I remember praying to God, and I said, God, please don't let this be my life again, please. And I took a bunch of Benadryl, and I went to sleep. Yeah, and that was the last day I ever used. That was June 1st, 2019. And I wish I could say that I got honest right away. But I have a pride and ego, and I thought you guys were going to judge me, and I thought everybody was going to think I was a hypocrite because I had 5.5 years. I shouldn't be smoking best, and blah 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 blah. And the reality was is that it was eating inside of me. It was tearing me up, and I finally got honest with Carol, my sponsor, and I started this journey again. And I really honestly feel like because of that relapse, it showed me in my face how easy, when you lose that connection with a higher power, how easy it is for you to pick up and use like if it was nothing. And that's exactly it. And it wasn't like I tripped and fell on it. It wasn't like it was like, oh, I planned that shit out. Like I knew where to go. I knew how to pick somebody up. I had to go get the money, like all of this stuff, right? I had it all planned out. I knew what I was doing. And because I had no defense, like me and God weren't good. I hadn't talked to him in so long. I was too busy. Look at me go. And that's what happened. He it's like he spiritually sat me down. He like brought me back to my senses. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. It allowed me to get back to basics with my sponsor, back to the book, back to like, I didn't forget everything I learned. What I did was I started my time over and I kept going, and my sobriety now is the longest sobriety I've ever had. There's substance behind it right now. And that's what I truly believe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said this story before, and I'll say it again because it completely pertains to what you're talking about. Like, for me anyway, I don't know if you've ever seen that picture where it's like, it's usually in church where there's like a shepherd and he's got the staff, and on one end there's like a hook, and on the other end there's like
Hmm.
a flat part. So I asked somebody why that picture is always in a church, right? And this dude told me, he was like, well, it's because that's a shepherd's staff, and if one of the flock keeps getting away, the shepherd will break the legs of that lamb and carry it to where it needs to go. So like to me that means like when I get put in timeout or like jail or like, I relapse or whatever, that's God like literally breaking my legs and carrying me where I need to go. And
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable and it sucks, but it's necessary.
Yeah. I absolutely believe that so many times God had to, that was the only way he could get my attention. Because when we're out there on the streets, we're resourceful. We can figure it out. We can hustle. We can get ours. We can do whatever we need to do for a season, for a time. But then, you know, I don't know if I ever would have stopped it. In all of those years, I used crystal meth for over 20 years. I don't know if I ever would have stopped if I hadn't been going to jail. If I was one of these I know people who've never gone to jail, who've used longer than I did, and they just always seem to escape all of that. And I just can't imagine. Like God had to take me out of there and set me down and give me some time to think. And what it did was people planted the seed. Planted the seed of recovery. When I would go in jail and go to H9 meetings, when I would go in there and people would come in and talk, and girls would have this and that, and it wouldn't stick, mind you, but at least that little seed was planted. And then when I had the opportunity after getting some time, I went back into the jail, into the prison that I used to be in, and I was able to plant that seed, you know, one little seed at a time. And that's how I give back.
And that's amazing. And you're right. Sometimes it doesn't stick at first, but we hear something that, makes us feel comfortable enough to go back. And I think
Yeah.
that's important. We know there's a solution out there because I mean it's working for so many people, but I mean sometimes the timing is just off. My first experience with A was when I was 19 and I got a DUI and they told me I could either go to jail because I'd failed a bunch of drug tests because they were like, "Yeah, you failed for cocaine like 3 months in a row. You're going to either rehab or jail." And I was like, "What rehab am I going to?" So
Mhm.
they told me at this rehab, we had to hit meetings because it was more like a halfway house. Like we could leave during the day and work, and then we had to hit a meeting and go back essentially. And I just remember going to the meetings and just not paying attention, and, like, the old timers at this meeting telling me that they spilled more beer on their shirt than I ever drank, and,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, "To fucking shut up and listen," and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't think I belong here." I'm like, "I probably belong here, but, like, I don't think," you know? And,
Yeah.
it just didn't stick until much later on in life, but I just remember that, the seed was planted and I could see that it was possible to stop, you know, because I did believe that those other people that were in there were alcoholics. Like, I didn't not believe it, you know? I wasn't like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
don't think these people drank like I did." And now they're sober and seemingly happy. I just didn't think that that solution was available to me for some reason. I don't know.
There's there's a part in the 12 and 12 in step 1 that talks about, like, um, like, in the beginning, there was 100, and then, after a while, like, people with 2 cars in the garage and a house and everything were getting sober, and then these, young people who were spared the last literal, 10 years of literal hell the rest of us had to go through, and young people are getting sober, and that's what it talks about in the 12 and 12, and it talks about raising the bottom for these young people, and, for all these people who, maybe they don't end up homeless, maybe they don't end up in jail or prison, but they still experience that powerlessness and hopelessness that we all experience, whether homeless or, $1 million house, we all feel that those same feelings. And I absolutely agree. When I get a sponsee that's a young person, I try to impress on her so much that you don't have to. You can get sober now, you can do this now. You don't have to go out and do 10 more years of research. Like, this shit's not getting any better, and it's all gonna be the same, and just try to just help them get through the past that they're so young. And that's why I love places like The Spot, because it's super hip, super chill. There's young people, there's middle age, there's old age, like, it doesn't matter. It's all inclusive.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I actually got, like, put some time together, it was a while back, and, like, I went to a meeting called ASCII Pot, and it was all young people, and, like, they threw, like, big young people events and stuff, and they were super fun, and, I mean, I wound up relapsing, later on when I had time too. And I can honestly tell you it was just literally from, and again, it's like being homeless. Like your recovery slips gradually. One thing goes and you're like, okay, I can handle that. And then all of a sudden you're not connected with God anymore. You're going out with newcomers, you're missing meetings, you're not picking up for sponsees. And then you're like, well, I might as well just have a drink, right? Like I could do
Right.
that. And then, you know, less than a week later, I'm homeless smoking crack again. So it's
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, that's what I have to struggle with myself at times, and with other sponsees that have a little bit of time. It's like, it's so easy to say, I'm too busy, I can't keep going to meetings, or I can't keep my service commitments, and all of that, because we have this busy great life. Like, we got to remember we got that great life, and keep doing the things we do to get that we got, keep doing those things, because I want to keep this great life. And yes, it makes it for a crazy life in a super busy life, but I don't ever wanna get to a place where, like, I'm too busy to sponsor women. I'm too busy to be on a service commitment, to be on a committee, or to, go talk to somebody or answer the phone. Like, I am not that important to where I can't do these things still, even at 6 years. And, here's the thing is, like, I've watched women and that have come before me with 10, 15, 18. My sponsor, like, still sits on service commitment, still goes to committee work, still goes to events, still goes to me, like, you know what I mean? At 20 something years. Like, who am I? My little 6 years, I want what said they have. And so I'm doing what they're doing. And so I'm going to keep going to committee work. I'm going to keep going to my home group and keep being of service no matter what. Answer the phone. I want to keep this great life. I'm kind of selfish. I love my life.
and absolutely, and that's the other thing, what a lot of newcomers don't realize is, like, we want to help you. It is a selfish thing a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? We want to see you do good, but it makes us feel good to see the lights go on in someone else, you know?
And gets that I get to keep this wonderful life. You know, and I tell my sponsor, this isn't just something I do once a week when I come and see you and treatment, or it's not just once a week when I'm sitting in a meeting or whatever. This is a lifestyle. This is what I do every single day, no matter what, some form or fashion. I'm doing some kind of service work, where it's answering the phone, going to see somebody, jumping on a committee call, whatever it is. I This is my life. This is what I surround my life with, and the people around me, and God just makes everything possible. He has never put too much on my plate where I was just like done. Just He always seems to make the time to work out, and for that I'm super grateful. And I tell all my sponsees, come with me. Do what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a much better life, you know? And I mean, and it's something that, I mean, even in recovery though, because I mean, I think a lot of people get, because the steps promise a few things, right? Serenity is one of them if you're doing it the right way. That doesn't necessarily mean like happiness. It means that you're going to be able to handle everything in your life with the help of God, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean you're gonna be over the moon about life every day, but it also doesn't mean you're gonna be depressed anymore, you know? Or like you're gonna get in a funk. I mean, it doesn't promise that, but today we're able to handle these things and it's a lot more stable. Like to me, serenity is like stability. I'm able to not be thrown too off kilter by anything that life throws at me because I have like a good group of guys that I talk to. I have, my sponsor, I have God, I have all these things that are working for me in my life that when bad things happen, I'm able to handle them, you know? That's why like it's weird. I tell all the newcomers that I talk to, you need to do all the little shit so that when the big shit happens, you're able to fucking handle it, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I always tell my girls, yeah, I need you to get some numbers, because I'm not always going to be available, but I will do my best. But what it does is allows them to just through me out, they'll be able to establish new relationships with other women, right? And they get to pass that on to whoever they're sponsoring, and they get to, again, the seeds get planted, every which way.
And I got to admit, I did get like super lucky this time around in recovery because when I was at the New Solutions 10 years ago, I was in a room with 3 other guys. It was Adam Davey, Max Perez, and Joe G. And they all stayed sober, like all of them for like 10 years, 11 years. They're getting 11 years like next month, all of them. And so when I got sober this time, I had those guys that I could call, you know?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
but I still tried to get numbers from people I didn't necessarily talk to because what if one of them wasn't available? What if my sponsor wasn't available? It's so important to put yourself out there and ask for numbers because nobody in the rooms is going to tell you no, or
Yeah, for sure. They're gonna be like, take this one, take this person's number. Okay, go get their number. They'll give it to you. I'll give it to you.
yeah, exactly. And I tell people that I'm like, I don't mind giving my number out, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and it's just crazy because I was super blessed this time around with like a lot of dudes that had time that were like my best friends. And I always look back on the New Solutions from 10 years ago as like my college experience almost because like I never went to
Yeah.
college and that was sort of
Yeah.
like my college experience. And I was there a little over a year at the New Solution. This is when Nancy ran it. Shout out to Nancy. I fucking love Nancy.
She
She's
was my very first sponsor. I love that place was my foundation. That's where I got my first taste of actual recovery, was the New Solutions, Henry, Nancy, Devin, who worked in the office.
love Devin.
That's how I named my dog after too. But anyways, love that place. It always has a special place in my heart. Walk through the gate, walk through that gate, hear the gate shut. I just immediately this sense of peace and calm, like kind of brings me back a little nostalgic, brings me back to the days of just sitting on the patio, smoking cigarettes, talking to whoever. Um, yeah, that place always has a special place in my heart for sure. For sure. Definitely shout out to Nancy.
Yeah, she was great. Oh, the toxic patio. Loved the toxic patio. Like that was the best. And you could go out there any time of night and there'd be someone out there and you could talk to them. I mean, it was just such a cool experience. And, I probably stayed a lot longer than they wanted me to. I was
Mm,
there almost a year, and it was just
yeah,
I don't know. It was just so weird because I went there and I noticed that everybody was like working in call centers and like, it was kind of like my first experience at like really trying to get sober at a halfway house. And Nancy let me back like 3 times because she could see I was trying. I just didn't know what
yeah.
the fuck I was doing. And I remember that I was working at this call center and she fucking called me in the office. She's like, "What are you doing, babe?" And I'm like, "Nothing." I'm like, "I don't understand. I'm paying my rent, blah, blah." She's like, "But you're working at this call center. That's not who you are." And I'm like, "I know. I work in restaurants." And she's like, "Well, quit the call center and get a restaurant job." And I'm like, "But I'm going to fall behind in rent." She's like, "Owe me a couple weeks of rent. Just, I want to see you happy." And like, that meant the world to me,
That
you
was
know?
her. That was Nancy. Yeah, that was Nancy for sure, for sure. She ran a tight ship, but everybody knew exactly where Nancy was and where she stood. There was no wavering for that. Yeah.
Those Sunday morning meetings were like the best. They were the highlights of my week. If you did nothing
The
wrong, they were the
endless
highlights of your
food, the endless food. There was always food there. My gosh. Yes.
And they always had good cooks, always, like, the cooks were
Yeah.
always on point. Because I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, great cooks are, I guess, prone to addiction. I know that, like, I've worked in a restaurant for a really long time, and I'm prone to it, so, like, they have, like, some of the best cooks that you can imagine that are, like, living at this halfway house just, cooking you
Yes.
food. It's incredible. But,
Yes.
yeah, the Sunday morning meetings were always the best, especially if you did nothing wrong and you just got to sit there in the back with your friends and, like, laugh at Nancy just chewing everyone else out. It was
Oh, yeah. Getting your strikes, not yeah, curfew and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah, those were the good old days. So I feel like you want to ask me a question.
okay. About what?
Are you going to ask? I don't know. What's it like being married to Brian Moore?
Uh, I mean, I was gonna ask you that, eventually. I love Brian, man, like, he saved my life, and yeah, well, what is it like being married to the probably the busiest guy in recovery? Like, he's so busy.
Don't tell him that. Don't tell him. What's it like being married to Brian? I'm a really good listener. I don't talk a lot. And we work really well together. We both bring our strengths to the table and compromise, lots and lots of compromise. And you know what? I don't sponsor him, he doesn't sponsor me. We've might have told each other once or twice, have you called your sponsor? But other than that, we are very careful that we don't I mean, we never I don't want to say we never, we rarely go to meetings together. And not because oh, we just it does never really you know, um it's not something that we regularly do. I like to keep my recovery separate, same as him. And if we'll go together if there was an occasion or something like that, but it's not something that we normally do is go to meetings together. We definitely keep that separate.
And I mean, and I think that's important, you gotta have keep your recovery separate and not take each other's inventory, and that can be super hard at times.
Good. Sit down. Mhm.
But,
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely important.
yeah, I think in any functioning relationship, it's important that the people I mean, it's really weird because you guys are almost exact opposites. Like, you don't talk a lot at all. Anyone that actually knows you this is the most I've ever heard you talk, and I've known you for going on 2 actually, I knew you when I was at the New Solution. I knew you when, yeah, I remember you used to come by there, and this is the most I've ever heard you talk. And Brian,
Yeah.
I would get this in the first 5 minutes of meeting him. So
Yeah, I've learned that it's my own insecurities. I think that I really don't have anything that anybody really wants to hear. And I have learned through the years that I need to speak up because, even if one person can take one piece of what I said, then I'm doing God's work. And that's what I'm here for. I don't really, not really one for the spotlight. I don't really like, not really one to be the center of attention. I'm actually quite opposite of that. So, and even actually doing this I'm, uh, I'm pretty shocked that I said yes.
Well, you had a little motivation. You had me and Brian both asking you several times before you agreed to it. You said no a few times before you said yes.
Sure, sure. And if I can step up and do this, maybe other women will see that it's not, if I can do it, they can do it. You know, I am the most introvert person you'll probably meet. And this has really brought me out of my shell. And so maybe they would like to see that it's not, or maybe they'll see that it's not that bad, and give it a try. And hopefully there's somebody out there that's going to listen to just a piece of this and take it and know that, recovery is definitely possible. Doesn't matter if you've been homeless, convicted felon like me, it doesn't matter. You can have a renewed life. That's for sure.
And yeah, and that's what this program is all about. And it's crazy to see people come in the rooms and then like, I mean, even myself, like I have a hard time believing I'm where I'm at today. It's just incredible.
Yeah,
I try not to think
yeah.
about it too much. I just try to go with it. Because the people always talk about doing like the next right thing, and sometimes I don't know what the next right thing is, so I just do the next thing. And if it's a mistake, I just learn from the mistake. I
Hmm.
just call my sponsor
Yeah,
about it and learn from it.
for sure.
But it is incredible because, like, you're one of those people that I know even though you don't talk a lot, when you do talk, people tend to, like, listen because you don't speak a lot, people listen when you talk, you know? Like, you actively hold their attention, which is, super important. I mean, the rooms of recovery needs all sorts of people. We need people that are quiet, we need people that are talkative, we need people that are willing to run committees or, willing to do this. And just for anyone out there that doesn't feel that there's a place for them to get involved, there definitely is, no matter what your personality type.
Are there definitely is. There's some people who can sponsor 20 women, but you know, they're not great with committee work. Or, in my case, I sponsor a few women, but I love committee work. I love to sit on committees. I love to plan events. I love to be in the background of it all. I like to you know, do the busy work, do, the footwork. And that's just that's where I shine. And that's where I get to meet some wonderful women and establish some of these relationships through service work. How can you not be happy doing service work, right? It's the best for
It's
me,
awesome.
anyways. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and it's so awesome because, like, for so long I lived a life completely devoid of any purpose that didn't have some self-interest involved in it. And today I get to live a life of purpose with the only self-interest involved is that it makes me feel good to do good things?
Right. For sure. For sure. Doing service work and meeting with sponsees and just, it's the best feeling ever. It's like this, I don't know, sense of like belonging. And I know when I was out on the streets, it's one of the things I always just wanted to be a part of something. And I thought that the street life was it. And that's not. This is where my people are. This is my family. This is my home, and I will do everything I can to keep it and to keep this great life for sure.
And I mean, I doubt that anybody that's on the streets is actually listening to this podcast, but anybody that might be thinking about going back, I just want to let you know or let them know that the streets are undefeated. They're undefeated. Like, you're not going to win. Those streets are undefeated.
Yeah.
There's no way
Yeah.
you're going to win that battle.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a long time since I was homeless, but man, I still remember what it was like. And I still see people out there today and I talk to them and it hasn't changed. And I started using crystal meth in 1993. So the streets have not changed since then. And here we are today, seeing the same things. I would really, if somebody's out there listening to this and they want to change their life or at least do something different, reach out. There's plenty of resources out there to help you. And if you're in Phoenix, go to the spot, talk to somebody. They will help you get to treatment, get to detox, whatever it is you need. There's plenty of resources.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely go up to the spot, talk to anyone up there, anyone that's working there, anybody that's just up there with a little bit more time than you, or even the same amount of time as you. Talk to each other, bitch about your halfway house. That's what it's there for. Go up there and
Yeah.
complain
Hit
about
a
your
meeting.
roommates.
I
It
don't know.
sucks. Huh?
Yeah, hit a meeting. Try to reach out in a meeting, and speak and let people know that you're struggling, you know?
Yeah,
Reach your
and
hand out and
someone
somebody
will
will be
reach their
there.
hand out if you say you're struggling,
Yeah.
like, it's not like, somebody will come up to you after the meeting, and whether you want them to or not, they will come up to you and talk to you,
Yes, it
and I
will.
mean,
Yeah,
and the overwhelming amount of love you're gonna feel in these rooms if you allow yourself to is something that you're not gonna experience anywhere else.
absolutely. I would agree. I would agree.
100%, and yeah, I just wanna say thank you for doing this today and taking the time out of your super busy day to do this, and it was really fun getting to talk to you a little bit more and getting to know you, and I just wanna say thank you. Is there, uh is there anything that's coming up that you wanna promote or wanna throw out there?
I just want to say that this weekend at the spot, we have a big game party. And on Saturday at the spot, we have a Valentine's dance from CMA Rocks home group. They're going to have a Valentine's Day dance and there's going to be some food. And then on Sunday is the big game party at the spot. We're going to have some squares and food, some Chicago dog bar. So come out to the spot this weekend and support some great causes. So,
And, and I just wanna say, like, I got to work the Valentine's Day dance last year, and it was one of the funniest things that I'd ever seen in my entire like, the tweaker dating game was the funniest thing, and I mean, you don't think you're gonna have a good time doing it, but you have a really good time doing it. It's a whole bunch of
I'm so,
tweakers drinking coffee that is way too strong, all in a room together playing a dating game. Shit is gonna go down. It's funny as
oh
fuck,
yeah,
like, you know?
it's gonna be great. Yes. Awesome. I hope to see you guys all out there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope that your vet appointment earlier went well.
Oh, it's coming up. Yep, it's gonna be up here in a little bit, so gotta get ready for it. But
Okay.
my
Well,
doctor's appointment was this morning, so yeah, it went
okay.
good.
Oh, I hope your doctor's
Yeah.
appointment went well too, and I hope I'll
Yeah.
pray for your dogs for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.